It was the summer after my 8th grade year. I was 12 years old. Mom and I were heading to Payless, and she was mad at me about something, so I was stubborn and stayed in the car. I sat with my legs up on the dashboard listening to music, and my chair tilted a little bit back. And then this car drove up not too long after. My mom walked into the store, and the man from the corner of my eye, I could see, was just sitting in the car. So I was alert for a moment, and then when I heard him say, "Hurry up," and I don't remember the name, but in my mind, I thought, well, he's waiting for someone. So I relaxed again and started listening to my music. Then he got out of the car, and it looked like he was going to get something in his back seat. But seconds later, he reached into my car, into the window, open window, and touched me in my vagina. I screamed and pushed him away and rolled up the window and then got out on the driver's side. And the entire time that I was doing that, he was watching me. I ran into the store looking for my mom, crying, and when I told her what happened, she ran out to see if the man was still there, and he was gone already. Called the cops. I remember writing a statement about what happened, and not too long after that, I was in a courtroom. It was a grand jury, and I remember it being a grand jury because I was sitting in there with the attorney and these adults in like a round table with it's like a conference setting. I told my story. They were staring at me. I could see in their eyes like they either weren't interested or they didn't believe me, is what I perceived. And then when they started to ask me questions, they were questions like, why did you have your legs up on the dash? What were you wearing? In my mind, as a 12-year-old, I thought that those adults didn't either believe me or that it was my fault. It wasn't until about a couple weeks ago when I was doing some grief recovery work with another grief recovery specialist that this suppressed memory had come up. And so I started to really dig deep, try and figure out what happened, because I didn't think about it for years. And what I can remember is that I lost all trust in men, but I also behaved in ways that I didn't want anyone to know that I was violated. And so I did things that I wouldn't normally do. I started to drink alcohol and smoke marijuana, and this is in my teenage years. But one of the significant things that I do remember is that whenever someone asked me if something was wrong, it didn't have to be about this, it could be about anything, I shut down. Especially when it was an adult. And the reason I shut down is because I didn't believe that they would believe me even if I told them what was wrong, because that grand jury affected how I felt safe around adults and my story, whatever that was. The other thing that really came to mind as I was doing some reflection on this is that my family, we never talked about it. It was one of those things that we dealt with in that moment when we needed to, but outside of that, we never talked about it. And my mom and I actually talked about it a couple of days ago when I told her that I was going to come out with this story. And I asked her if she told anyone, if we told anyone about this. And it was so long ago that she can't truly remember. All she knows is that her and my dad knew about it and my grandparents. But outside of that, we never talked about it as a family. So now that it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I do want to encourage everybody to please have a voice and talk about it. If a child that you know, if it's your child that has suffered from some sort of sexual violence, you need to make sure that you talk about it. Allow them to have a safe space to talk about their feelings, because there's so much fear and loss of trust and confusion for a child. I know, because I was that child. If you were one of those like me that didn't talk about it for a long time, I encourage you to direct message me and let's talk about it. I am the co-host for Anchored Souls Uncut, and we are always looking for people to share their stories, whether it's your first time or if it's your 10th time. We would love to give you that space, that safe space to tell it. And we encourage you to find help if you're still struggling with the traumatic event that happened in your life.